Dr. Oswefri Ekoto, Minister for Agriculture, Honorable Ministers of State and Deputy Ministers of State, Members of Parliament, Your Excellency Robert P. Jackson, United States Ambassador to Ghana, members of the Diplomatic Corps, Seyofi Grant, Chief Executive Officer of the Ghana Investment Promotion Center, Rick Devoren, Chief of Party, USAID, FINGAP, heads of institutions, distinguished invited guests, media, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me great pleasure to deliver the keynote address at this forum. I'd like to congratulate the CEO and staff of the Ghana Investment Promotion Center and also USAID, financing Ghanaian Agriculture Project, the USAID FINGAP, for hosting this event. It is my hope that the key players represented here today will also take the opportunity to participate in the upcoming agricultural sector stakeholders forum that the Minister for Agriculture is organizing, and we hope will help firm up the content of what we are calling a Marshall Plan for Agriculture to feed into the Planting for Food and Jobs program. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, for a sector that employs a majority of our peoples and which presents a critical transformational growth opportunity for Ghana, its declining fortunes over the years is nothing but heartbreaking. One of the reasons why agriculture and agribusiness potential is largely untapped is our inability over the years to optimally direct public policy and investments towards de-risking the sector to enable it to attract sustained private sector investments along its entire value chain. With the right level of support, we can unlock substantial value in farming through storage, transportation, agro-processing, branding and marketing, and distribution of food and commercial crops, as well as meat products, along with other agribusiness products and services like agrochemicals, farm tools and machinery, farm management software, and seed production, amongst others. Another factor that has contributed to the decline of the agricultural sector is that for far too long, public sector investments have been very low and has been backed by a conservative strategy that focused on minor incremental changes instead of transformational ones. In the meantime, programs such as USAID's FINGAP have stepped in to fill a critical part of the gap by facilitating access to financing. Deploying a combination of technical assistance, incentives, and training, FINGAP has worked with financial institutions to facilitate the flow of investments into the agricultural sector to businesses of all sizes. Indeed, as a successful example of a collaborative solution to support private sector agriculture ventures, FINGAP, since its inception in 2011, has facilitated almost 2,000 transactions in excess of $120 million, with emphasis on grains value chain in the northern part of Ghana. We must congratulate USAID for its continuing interest in providing essential support for the sector. Ladies and gentlemen, coming into office under the leadership of the President Nana Akufo-Addo, we were convinced that for the agricultural sector to take off, government must take leadership and also send the right signals to investors that it is ready to put its money where its policy priorities are. Planting for food and jobs, as the minister has just reiterated, was a necessary first step for our grand vision of modernizing agriculture and improving production efficiency by investing in the full agricultural and agribusiness value chain, including storage, transport, processing, packaging, and marketing, which will help improve incomes and create new businesses and job opportunities in the sector. In launching this initiative, the plan was to implement a program that will quickly address the primary challenges of the average farmer, as quality seeds and fertilizer, which, when addressed, would translate into its measurable impact in high yields and effectively higher incomes for the farmer. Initial indications, as the Minister for Agriculture has just mentioned, initial indications are that the Planting for Food and Jobs program is a success. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Planting for Food and Jobs testifies to our belief in taking bold decisions to transform the agricultural sector right from the onset of our government. However, we knew that to achieve the kind of transformation in agriculture that we want to see, we must up the ante. Thus, we must take even bolder decisions to reinforce the Planting for Food and Jobs program that will change the sector in fundamental ways. And this is what we are calling for this budget coming up and what the minister is planning. We want to see not just incremental steps, but major steps, what he calls the Marshall Plan for agriculture in Africa, and therefore in Ghana here. In the Growing Africa, Unlocking the Potential of Agribusiness report, the World Bank projected that Africa's farmers and agribusinesses could create a $1 trillion food market by 2030 if they can expand their access to capital, electric power, better technology, and irrigated land to grow high-value, nutritious foods. The question is what we as a country need to do to take advantage of these upside potential and to be part of the opportunities for lasting transformational structural change in the sector and in our economies. Our answer to this is anchored in the overarching development strategy of this government. At the heart of the economic transformation plan of the government of Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, the president, is a strategy of inclusiveness. This is really, at the end of the day, if you want to increase your production and your productivity and move up to your production possibilities frontier, you cannot do it by excluding most of your people. And this is why the whole paradigm is one of inclusiveness. And this is why we are talking about free SHS, one district, one factory, and so on, $1 million for one constituency, and so on. In essence, what we are looking for is we want a transformation of our economy that positively impacts the majority of our people, particularly the majority that have been excluded and left behind over the years as a result of structural deficiencies in our development trajectory. With this in mind, and with Planting for Food and Jobs laying the foundation, we are convinced that it is now is the time to onboard other elements of our vision for the sector by launching and implementing the Marshall Plan for Agriculture. Broadly speaking, the Marshall Plan for Agriculture is aimed at ramping up investments under the Planting for Food and Jobs, that is seeds, subsidized fertilizer, storage, and so on, abolishing duties on agro-processing manufacturing equipment, implementing grant funding for agribusiness startups, opening up food baskets across the country. For example, there are farm plains through road construction and irrigation projects. If you look at the country, you would see that there are many, many fertile areas that are really cut off. And you'd see places in their farm plains, you know, Agogo Dome through Donkokrom to the riverside. You know, if you could put a road there, especially Dome going through Donkokrom riverside, if you could put a good road there, it opens up the whole area for agriculture. And that is just there. Of course, you head out in the western region, and there are some major roads that if we could, for example, Elubo through Enchi and some of the other roads that you have in there, Wale Wale stretch, Bintiri Nalergu stretch, Karaga, Goshegu, Tamale stretch. There are some major key roads in this country that if we actually focused and put them together and actually did them, you open up agriculture and you de-risk this sector very significantly in our country. And so we have to, if we are talking about agriculture, sure, the private sector is going to play its part, but we've got to also, from the public sector side, invest in some of this infrastructure, like the road infrastructure, to open up the Yagaba-Kubori area, for example, major fertile ground. Why don't we make sure the bridge across the Boya or across Nawuni, those two bridges are done to bring this huge fertile land mass into cultivation? So we've got to make sure that if we put together all of these road networks, and they are not, huge if you look at the benefits that will come if we invest in them. And this is the sort of thinking that is driving this idea of the Marshall Plan in agriculture. And I'm sure that we are going to get also a lot of support in the area of irrigation in bringing all of this up. But it's a holistic approach that we should adopt in there. So we also want to, through this, look at de-risking the agriculture and agribusiness sector through a sustainable agriculture financing scheme. We want to establish a pension scheme for cocoa farmers and give specific technical assistance and tax incentives to support agro-processing, packaging, and so on. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, implementing the Marshall Plan for agriculture will lead to structural transformation, which in turn will catalyze economic activities and connect major sectors in the economy. It will lead to higher incomes, value addition for jobs, and the opportunities that come with being globally competitive. The Marshall Plan will also create the conditions necessary for attracting private capital, local and international, into large-scale commercial agriculture and agribusiness. And we need the ideas. There are a lot of good practitioners here. We believe in learning from the best and having the best ideas. And this is why the Minister for Agriculture, I think in a few weeks, is going to be convening this conference for stakeholders to look at what exactly will go into this Marshall Plan for agriculture. Let's interrogate it. What are the best things? And we know that USAID and other many other stakeholders have good ideas. And I think it is time to let us look at all of them and put them in a strategic document and a policy framework that we can implement to the satisfaction of all stakeholders in the industry, and to make sure we have a major ramping up of agricultural productivity in Ghana. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I invite you to think about the opportunities that exist for investors along the entire value chain of the agri sector as we launch the Marshall Plan for agriculture. And this plan is going to feed into the planting for food and jobs, which is essentially the overall strategy that we are going, combined with a strong legal and regulatory framework which protects your investments. The incentives and abundance of talent in the sector and the de-risking of the sector in order to attract financing, there can never be a better time for farmers, agro-processors, technological, distribution and post-production services providers to invest in the sector. So do invest in the tech sector. I take this opportunity to thank the USAID for implementing FinGap and to assure our partners and investors of government's continued commitment to working with all to ensure a thriving sector that yields positive returns for all. I thank you for your attention. May God bless our homeland, Ghana. Thank you.